When you create a character about a well-known topic or theme, how do you make them stand out? How do you take a simple idea and make it your own? Let me explain how I did it with this Ice Queen illustration. For context, my brother runs a D&D campaign and wanted art for his big end-of-campaign boss. So I decided to draw it for him. His character is called Her Majesty, an evil elf queen on the verge of ruling over a frozen world. My brother wanted her to be apathetic and intimidating, not to mention having lots of ice themes and armor. He didn't have a design, so I would be creating it as I go. An Ice Queen by itself is a simple idea, so let me explain how I made her stand out. To start with, I looked at Pinterest and Google to get some inspiration for her design. I wanted to see what people generally thought of when they searched up Ice Queen. Honestly, I'm pretty disappointed how much AI art I saw, but beyond that, I was able to get a good idea of where I wanted to go. I listed out all the obvious characteristics of an Ice Queen. A white and blue color scheme, white hair, snow, ice. My biggest problem was to make sure she didn't look like the evil Ice Queen from Narnia, or like Elsa from Frozen. Or Ice Queen from Adventure Time, now that I think about it. That one is probably the most obvious. Using this, I was able to get a good idea of what I didn't want, which made the design process much easier. Plus, I could reference this list later in the process to see how much overlap there was. Before designing the outfit, I found it best to draw out the pose first. I ran into my first problem because the first couple of drawings didn't work. It felt too stiff and symmetrical. It didn't emulate power, rather just a woman standing with a staff. So I ended up taking a picture of myself and referencing that, especially for the hands. Over the years, I have found that hands are actually getting easier to draw, but I still don't have the best grasp on how to shade them, so I kept referencing my photo to get that part right. Also, to make her look more intimidating, I drew her in a slightly lower angle, as if she's looking down at everyone. Looking back at the list of other Ice Queen characters in media, I think this was different enough to start with. Onto the design. My brother wanted her to look royal and evil, so I gave her a dress and a crown. He also wanted her to be pale and icy given the context, so white hair seemed like a good option to me. Now, I know I just said that white hair was something a lot of other people did when designing an ice character. Just because you are aware of these obvious design choices doesn't mean you need to avoid them entirely. Many of these features allow the readers to quickly see what kind of character they are. If I strayed it too far, then the icy or evil elements may end up being hard to notice, which you may want for your character. For Her Majesty, I wanted the Ice Queen vibes to be obvious, so I decided to use some of the simple characteristics. Seeing how I gave her white hair and all, I just needed to find other ways to make my design stand out. I took some time to think about this. Right now, she felt closest to the evil queen in Narnia. I forget her name. Especially how they both ended up with pointy ice-like crowns. So going back to what my brother wanted in this illustration, I remember he said Her Majesty had mithril armor, which in D&D, or at the very least in his campaign, mithril has these dark green hues. Now this was a game changer. Instead of just having an all white and blue color scheme, I could add in these dark green hues. To me, this reminded me of evergreens in the winter. The way I wanted her to stand out now was to focus on these darker colors. I wanted her to embody a cold winter night in the mountains, having that evergreen color and armor slowly becoming encased in ice. Even though I now had a solid direction to take this design, I still ended up struggling with it. I knew I wanted spiky parts and a fantasy flair to it, but not much else. I will say that it's not the best idea to design a character while also making the final illustration. Normally, I would take some time to sketch out an outfit separate from the illustration, but I had to get this done by the end of the week for the D&D campaign. So no matter what, I needed to finish it. To help speed up the progress, I started with the silhouette and the big shapes of the armor first, then worked my way down to the details. Thinking about what I wrote down, I wanted sharp, pointy edges that looked evil and intimidating. I also wanted to frame her face, since that is what will be shown the most on the game token, so her pauldrons helped me achieve that. When thinking about the armor, what helped me the most was thinking about how it would physically be made. Since mithril is a fantasy metal or rock, I tried to imagine how it would be fashioned together. The armor could have been made into individual sharp pieces first, and then welded or strapped together in layers. For the staff, I felt like it was something carved out of rock. There are still some rough edges that could be sanded down, but most of the tension is drawn towards the top of the staff, where the magical parts are. Not to mention, whatever shape I decided on, all of it will be frosted in ice by the end, so no need to go crazy on the details. Another way to help your characters stand out is to incorporate their background into their design. If they grew up in a certain climate, how would that affect what they wear? Do they have like a family heirloom or jewelry that ties to their character? For this character, she was the elf queen, so she maintained a very elegant and regal look. Her hair started out very well put together and professional, but maybe as the battle goes on, she becomes more wild. Maybe some of her hair is falling out of the bun, obscuring her face. Going back to the drawing, my favorite part of this is creating her face. Luckily, it was easy and fun to draw since it's really my comfort zone of art. In the end, she looks very menacing, uncaring, beautiful and terrifying all at the same time. At least that's how I see it. She'll definitely give you the cold shoulder. I also gave her glowing eyes to emphasize that otherworldly look. Looking back, I do wish I pushed her design a bit more. I could have given her more icy looking makeup or added in more frost around her eyes. But again, I had to finish this up in a week. If I had more time, I would like to experiment with a design to see how much I could push the character in a way that still resembles an evil ice queen. Maybe change her body shape or make her look less human, because at this point in the campaign, she is ascending to like a crazier, more magical form. Well, all things to keep in mind for the next illustration, I guess. At this point in the drawing, I had figured everything out that I wanted to, and just kept rendering out all the lighting and details. I do admit I threw in the background together last minute. Since this was made to be seen on a small token, it didn't matter as much, so I made it dark for the character to pop out. And of course, it had to be snowing in the background, which was added at the end. So to sum everything up, I first looked at how other people portray the simple idea of an ice queen. I took notes on all the obvious designs and looked for a way to make mine stand out, mainly in the armor and colors. By using darker greens and sharp shapes in the armor, I was able to portray a more evil and sinister take on your typical light blues you see with an ice queen. I will say that this is not to bash on all the characters that use these color schemes. Sometimes it's best to stick with the basics because, like I said earlier, this is the quickest way to show your audience what kind of character or theme you're going with. For me, it was most important to show an evil boss character. With that, I think we're ready for the results. Here is the final piece. If you are curious, yes, my brother's players were able to defeat her. There was this big prophecy that said the world was gonna freeze over, but because of some shenanigans from another world-altering force, they were able to stop Her Majesty from ascending. Also, something I didn't mention was that there was another phase to this fight where they had to stop the prophecy itself. They became like above the influence of it and were able to fight the prophecy and end it completely. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you want to support me, please head over to my Patreon, where you can get more art tips, time-lapses, and exclusive comic episodes. Or if you can't, then just simply reading my comics over on Webtoons or Tapas also helps. Of course, just watching this video helps as well, but you're already here at the end, so thank you. That's all I have to say, so I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!